All right. I'm used to this shit where I'm like, three, two. Hi, this is Nathan Stuck, and this is Unreasonably Optimistic.
My man. All right. So listen, you have got like you have so many roles that you either currently occupy, have recently occupied, you're founder, CEO, which a lot of times we will put those things together as like one thing, but they really are two totally different things. You're a lecturer, speaker, podcaster, advisor, like it's a lot. And so how do all these things kind of complement each other and come together and kind of contribute to the overall mission?
Well, thanks for reminding me that I'm crazy. I have too many hats. That's where I'm like, okay, at least I can see myself on the camera. I know I'm wearing my company hat right now. I also have one for the nonprofit. I have the UGA MBA hat was on earlier for a call with Tulane. I mean, definitely the B Corp is the hub of all the hats. But I think part of it too is just when you see something out that like needs solving, if there's not a solution for it, you're like, well, we could do this. And sometimes there's a solution for it, but you're like, oh, they need energy, they need help. I can help. I'll join the board. So I feel like there's also some semblance of like seeing something and wanting to do something about it that have led me to do all these things. And I mean, even when you look at like the speaking piece of it, like I am an outspoken proponent of reimagining capitalism, but I see that because I see a lot of what I would say isn't probably going to be a winning strategy, as far as winning people, winning hearts and minds over to this new way of doing business and kind of reintroducing capitalism 2.0 with humanity baked into it. And I see the power of like, as teaching the business school, I see the power of being able to teach the ROI of good business and move demand curves and get the business world to follow us. So I think, yeah, they're all just kind of like interweaving and they just kind of keep showing up. And Lord help me next year get better at saying no to new opportunities. But it's hard when it aligns with your life's work and your mission and your desire to be the change you want to see.
Somebody recently told me something that I love, which is no is a sentence.
God, I wish I could. I've done a little bit better this year, but it is hard. It's really hard, and I know too, like the extroverted personality, and God, I've done so many of those like corporate trainings that I facilitated, like DISC or predictive index or all these different things where like I know that I like to be liked. It is not healthy, but also I like to be liked, and so that means saying yes to people because you want them to like you. And I will say outside of and I've been getting better at like forcing myself to take breaks, realizing that if I don't work on a Sunday, like the world isn't going to stop. The work will just be there on Monday. But I've also started to realize, like, if I look at the last like 6, 7 years of my life, like, I mean, really going back to grad school and doing the B Corp project for the company that I ended up working for, that ended up helping me launch my own business. So, like, saying yes has worked out remarkably well to my career and to where I want to go and what I want to do. And I mean, I think about like the people. I mean, some of the people I get introduced to now. I was joking about this earlier. Like, I'll be on the other, like, why are you talking to me? Like, don't you have more important people to talk to? So that's again, it's also probably a horrible um, what is it like? It's like the worst enabler. It's like that friend you have that's like, hey man, let's go out drinking. It's like, every time I say yes and something good happens, you're like, damn, I really need some bad things to start happening when I say yes.
That's right. You only remember that one good time where you were like responsible. You kept it to 2.5. You left like half a beer on the table and walked away from it. Like that was the one time. Like, remember that one time? And we're just perfect. We're gonna make that happen again.
The other time you woke up at like a casino in Las Vegas, like what happened? So yeah, I think that's the thing for me though. I think, yeah, it just kind of it keeps working out. And you know, I think if you do it right and you're intentional about it, but again, there has to be some sense of like, when is enough enough, or when can you? And I think where I still struggle is I think I do say no. I think my no's are inefficient, if that makes sense. Like I know when I'm gonna say no, but I still do it in a very nice way. So it takes me like 3, 4 weeks of like emailing and being slow to respond to like we both kind of just move along with our lives. Like instead of just upfront being like, look, I don't have the bandwidth for this. So then I give myself like a month a month's runway of like anxiety of knowing that I'm trying to say no to somebody and not wanting to do it. So, but even some people have surprised me where you're like, I don't wanted to say no, and then boom.
I would say this though. I think you're like, you're the personification of the podcast. Like you're so optimistic about things. that
That's a good way to bring it full circle.
I mean, that's the purpose, right? It's like there's a lot of founders and a lot of people that get involved in a lot of things. It's because that you see the value of saying yes in a lot of ways and that you expect the good to happen. That we don't look at things and be like, "Oh man, that's going to be a total time suck." Like you're thinking, "Oh, this person is needs some help and I like helping and that's going to turn into something better." And so it's we tend to look at the good pieces of that. And I think the other part of that too is that you said earlier like that I believe in this too, that because we say yes to things in a lot of cases, it's also that need to be liked it kind of comes into play. You don't want and it sucks when somebody big times you. You know what I mean? Like when someone's like, I don't have time for you. Like it makes you feel shitty. And you don't want to do that to someone else either. It's a I think there's some reciprocation that you're looking for in that as well. As your therapist, this is truly how I feel about.
But you're right though. I think that you're 100% right. Like there is that yeah, like I'm keeping receipts. I'm like Coach Prime. Of like people that big time you. And it's funny, but like sometimes it just comes full circle. Like I remember there was somebody for years when I was trying to like get into more I speak German, I have an international business degree. And so like this is like pre MBA program. Like there's somebody who does really cool culture consulting work and like, I'd be like, "Hey," like, so I, like, just like, slide into the DMs on LinkedIn. And he's probably like, "Who is this guy? Like, why does he keep" and, like and it's funny because now we've become friends and we've been on panels together and, like, laugh about it because it's just like I was like, "I think he thought I was more important than I really was." Like, but in my mind, here's this guy, I'm like, "Oh my god, I've seen you on the LinkedIn." But yeah, no, it is you're definitely right that there's that, like I don't know, that abundance mindset and mentality of like, like students, I want to help students. Hopefully they can figure their, what out earlier than like 38 or whatever. I found figured mine out. Like there's just so many things that you just want to help and put ripples of good into the world. And like, as long as you're good at not getting jaded when when you see people, find success. And I think when we're celebrating our friends' success and celebrating our friends, maybe even passing us or, like getting big deals. Like I think to me that though is I don't know. I had a candid conversation with a friend the other day who does. I mean, just like we literally did a trash pickup on Saturday morning, and we went and got a beer afterwards, and we were just talking about that. Like, what if we die like broke social impact, like martyrs? Like we're just gonna grind ourselves in the ground, like watching all our friends and go take jobs like EY and McKinsey, and like just stacking zeros in those bank accounts. And, he's like, I'm starting to think that might actually happen to me, and I'm okay with it." And I was like, "Oh." So we went deep down this rabbit hole, like, turned into a whole philosophy conversation. But anyway, it was like, I don't know, I'm just doing it because it's what I'm passionate about, and it makes me feel good, and I sleep well at night, so we're just gonna keep doing it, and I love when I get to there's nothing more rewarding than getting the story. I had a friend reach out to me recently, and she was exiting a business she was CEO of, and she was like, "I've never done this before. I have no idea what's my valuation. What am I supposed to like? What's my buyout? I don't know." And so I connected her with a friend of mine who was my first client, who owns a pretty decent sized accounting firm, fractional CFO. And I'm like, "Yo, Kenji, can you talk to my friend and help her out and see, just kind of I don't know what to tell. I have no advice on this." And so next thing you know, like he's hired her to come in and do a bunch of work at her next venture. She's brought in like 2 new clients to his accounting firm. He's introduced her to another client, like, and you're just like, "Oh my god, that was me just going like, here's 2 cool people that I think need to know each other, and maybe you can help my friend." And he went into it also not thinking like, "I don't have time to help your friend." Like, you know what I mean? Like that. So I don't know. I found myself also, I think it's reaffirming when you start surrounding yourself with people who think like this as well, who will make, and after a while you send enough like good introductions, like they'll I have certain people on my list that you don't have to clear it with me anymore. I'll meet them. Just send it. You never sent me a dud. You're batting 1,000. Like you can send me whoever you think I need to meet, even if it's just to help your relational capital by introducing them to me. Like I'm happy to help, certain friends, even when that's the whole play. is them hoping that maybe I can help somebody that they are hoping to impress, do business with, etc. So yeah, I don't
It's
know.
a whole new
So
definition of surrounding yourself with yes people.
the right kind of yes
That's
people.
right. That's right. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about PPC, which is funny to me because I always think of that when I see it. I'm like, oh, that's pay per click, uh, digital digital marketing. I'm like, oh, he buys Google Ads. Nope, not what he does. Explain to me how it's not pay per click, and then like, what's the whole concept? You know, the concept of B Corp certification and the why behind that.
Um, yeah, honestly, I have a friend at a B Corp who wrote the naming book. And so when I was coming up with the name, it was just, I don't know, alliteration, hard consonants. And then it was a great company name until I realized I can't afford to buy PBC.com. So I'm stuck with, what's your email? Well, it's Nathan at profitablepurposeconsulting.com. I've like filled out people's calendars before and they're like, hey, are we still meeting? And I'm like, I don't have anything on my calendar. They're like, oh, I misspelled my own email address. Um, so yeah, people started calling us PPC, we're just running with it. But yeah, honestly, accidental entrepreneur, the same guy from the story, Kenji, just reached out one day and said, hey, I was talking about B Corp at the dinner table. My wife said, you need to talk to Say Nathan. I met him at a networking event. And it's funny because the company she was at is now a client as well, like years later after I first met her. And like that was kind of like, ooh, let me see if they want to do B Corp. And so I went to my old boss at Victorium and was like, Jeff, like this company wants to pay us. And it was like coming out of COVID. It's like early 2021. So like, I'm like, I'm bringing in business, I'm like, what do you want me to do? You want me to like, I can put together a little SOW, and I did a lot of our financial operations. I'm like, I'll send him an invoice in QuickBooks. And he's like, I don't want you to do any of that. And I'm like, huh? He's like, start your own LLC. And I was like, oh, okay. Like,
I've,
do I have
that's
to?
the nicest I've ever heard anybody getting fired.
Yeah, he was like, "No, I want you to," and he's like, "And honestly, just don't tell anybody." He's like, "Well, like, and if you start to scale it, then we'll figure out what your exit looks like. But just kind of like, I trust you to do that after hours, and I know that you'll put in 35, 40 hours a week on that, on top of what you do for us, and that'll give you a nice runway, off ramp to be able to build that while you're still getting paid to do the good work you've done here for 5 years." And I was like, "All right." So eventually people started probably kind of figure out that first person to comment on every post was Nathan. Or PPC always commented on my posts. hmm. Oh, my friends laughed at me like, you have conversations with yourself in the LinkedIn threads. And I was like, oh yeah, no, I manage a lot of LinkedIn pages for the conference, for Be Local Georgia, for the company, for myself. Yeah, no, there's definitely some some like, way to go, Nathan. Yes, congratulations. Like,
I want to thank you for thanking myself.
just me changing organizations.
Uh,
Hey, feed the algorithm, maybe. Um, but yeah, I mean, B Corps to me are a reason I'm unreasonably optimistic. There you go. But like there is the sense that like business has the opportunity to reshape what we're doing, how we're doing it, society's biggest issues. I say this all the time, and I 100% mean it. We will change the world when we change how we teach business. And again, that comes back to how do we bring the ROI into all of this. But B Corps are essentially companies trying to use business as a force for good. How do we put our stakeholders first? How do we make decisions with thought around how we're affecting the environment, how we're impacting our communities, how we're taking care of our people? And so I think there's a part of that we miss. And, you think about like the 50s and 60s and some of like when we had pensions. People went and worked somewhere for 40 years and they took great care of you. And they it depends. But you had these things where it was like they thought about their people, and then we slowly kind of started deregulating more and more and kind of going to right to work states. And I'd say also on the other hand, I think unions deserve some of the blame too, getting greedier and greedier and greedier and greedier, wanting more and more and more. And I think you just kind of had this whole thing kind of implode upon itself, where it just became this like cutthroat, I can fire you for any reason. I can quit for there's no loyalty either way. And why should there be, especially from the employee side? Like, why should there be if you can? Why should I give you 2 weeks notice if you can tell me to clean out my desk right now, for no reason? Like, it just became this like really icky environment. As somebody who's loved business for a really long time and studied business for undergrad and did an MBA and teaches in a business school, I've always loved the concept of like getting paid for the value you bring to the marketplace. And I've always loved the concept of like risk, reward for risk taking and building something special. I just haven't thought that we needed to do it in a like slimy, scummy way where we're, unethical and where we teeter on the gray, and to the point where in business schools we actually teach like, okay, crisis management. You kind of got caught doing something a little shady. How do you get out of it? Like the whole case, that case competition is like, you're meeting with the board of directors in 30 minutes. Go. And you're like, wait, what if we just didn't do the shady thing in the first place? What if we explain to the board of directors that like, hey, here's the risk of doing this, and we're not comfortable taking that risk and putting people's lives in jeopardy. So we're going to take the short-term revenue hit for the long-term sustainability of our business. Boom, done, case over. So that to me is what the B Corp community is all about. It's doing business right, doing business profitably, but also doing business in a way that values our stakeholders and thinks about more than like showing the street Q1 return. Like that's kind of what we've got into, is like it's all about we don't make any long-term decisions anymore in business. We just everything short-term, reactionary, and I think it's hurt society as a whole. I don't think we make the best decisions when we act like that.
Yeah, I think it was you and I, in a previous conversation, we were talking about how in business school they're just teaching people to raise, right? Like just raise money, make the valuation look good at all costs, spend that money, raise again. Like you don't actually have to have a profitable business that does anything. You just have to look like you're on the books valued at something more. And that's I mean, I completely agree with that concept of the and that being the wrong way to grow a business, or, you know, developing a purpose for more than just a balance sheet.
Yeah, and I think that's something, I don't know. It's one of the unique things that I get to do with my teaching, is kind of teach these students to also, like, if we want to change the world, how do I make the business case for changing the world? Kind of have to operate within the system. So how do I make the case for the ROI of the added benefit or whatever it is you're thinking about internally at the company? How do I sell the CFO on it? And I think if we start to frame things in how we sell them and market them, and I think a lot of the stuff on the whatever you want to call it, the progressive side, I think we've always kind of like we lead with why we think you should do it. And it's like, has nobody taken a sales class? It's like, find out what their pain point is and make them feel like they need it and make it their idea that they want it. And I think sometimes we do ourselves a disservice when we talk about some of these things. It's, from whatever you want, from DEI to ESG to whatever, we kind of lead with like the heartstring argument, which is the reality of like, I think most business owners know that a diverse team performs better. The diverse team is going to help you understand your client base better because your client base is probably diverse. So all of these things of like, of this is why it's good for business. This is why we're going to continue. And then, ESG, like this is about risk for the business. It's about mitigating that risk. It's about understanding but we kind of go with like, but the polar ice caps are melting, and yeah, they are. But like, to me, I don't feel I'm selling out our values, but because by leading with the business case, because to me, we don't have time to really waste talking semantics. I think if we're going to get to work, I'm just looking at how can I sell this and get more companies to adopt good business practices immediately. And I think that some of my friends would say that like I'm crazy and I need to, capitalism's the enemy, and I'm like, okay, but I don't. It's my own opinion. I don't think that our argument's ever going to win, at least not in our lifetimes.
That you can still run a profitable business and still do social and environmental good.
Know that you should do good things because it's good for the world to do them. Like, I don't think that argument's ever going to win the masses over. I think doing good business, being good for business, and making a company more profitable and resilient, recruiting better talent, retaining that talent, acquiring more customers, building greater brand affinity, brand loyalty. I think that is a business case that you can make that everybody, those are things that we teach in the business school that every business person values. So if we can tie back these ideals to those values, I think the sky's the limit. And then make the business case for it, have the ROI, have the demand curve shift, be able to show the data. I think that's when we start to advance society and start to solve some of these problems that I think we're just kind of beating our heads against the wall right now.
You know, there's a you familiar with the name Albert Lasker?
Mm.
Okay. I think this is the right one. I'll follow up with you, make sure you know. But basically, like, he's the father of, he's one of the fathers of PR, and his whole thing that he would do is he would find a like something that people could get behind in order to promote the product. So he wouldn't use the product as the thing that he wanted. He would promote something else. So if like profitability was the thing that people could get behind, he that would be the thing that he would ride. And then this other, product that would come behind to help you be more profitable. Because we can all agree that we want to be more profitable, well, then you need this. He wouldn't say you need this because we all agree this. See what I'm saying? Like he used sort of a social wave to help him sell the things that he wanted to sell. Now that being said, he also he's the reason why Philip Morris is as big as they were. So
That was always the worst. Like, also, he sold a lot of
a lot
cigarettes.
of cigarettes.
Marlboro.
He
Don't you
is
want to be a Marlboro man? Free. We were talking about the desert Southwest before we started recording.
Yep.
Don't you want to be free on that horse out in the wilderness with your Marlboro? No, I don't actually. Yeah, no, you're right though. Sales is very psychological and even the marketing piece. But again, you're trying to identify that pain point. You're trying to figure out what is this person? What do they need? What problem do they need to solve right now? And so I just think we need to fight fire with fire, take the business approach to that conversation. And again, it's not. I don't feel like we're doing anything slimy. I just think if we lay the case out, um, most people want these types of things. They want, everybody. If you start going down to like lowest common denominators, like, hey, do you think that every kid should have access to a good education? Yeah. But when you start wording it, say, I think we also do a lot of like zero sum scarcity mindset things too that scare people away from good solutions. And I think we need to collectively as a country figure out a way to do things more abundantly and do things that rising tide lifts all ships. I think if we could focus more on those solutions, then kind of like an us versus them or a this group versus this group, where it becomes this like survival of the fittest. And I don't claim to be some sort of like psychology major, just a business. Those are both business degrees. But there is something psychological to that too when you feel like threatened. Um, that people are going to kind of retreat and kind of get in a defensive pose. And so I don't know. I think there's a lot to unpack in this too. But to me, it's been and it will continue to be about how do we make the business case that good business is good for business, and that will be
yeah.
that's going to be the epitaph on my tombstone.
Well, and I think given the choice, right, for most people, you can make money doing good or you can make money doing bad. Which would you choose? And you're going to get more people that would choose this. Unfortunately, doing bad sometimes makes more money. When you see billionaires and stuff like this, there's a wake of bodies behind people that have $1 billion. There's no like there's some bad had to happen to get to that number, sadly. Um, but let's do this. Let me ask you this question. I'd like give me like an example, and it doesn't have to be anything recent, but where like you guys kind of helped consult with someone or you helped someone to get the certification, and it sort of underlines this intersection of profitability and purpose.
That's a great one. I mean, I love that a lot of our work is with like earlier stage entrepreneurs, but also with bigger businesses. Um, I mean, let me just, I don't want to say I'll speak generically, but like I think a lot of like there's two things I run into a lot, and one of them is the smaller, earlier stage company that's working with us that, wants to save the world and wants to do this and that. And I think sometimes it is powerful to help them put a strategy around it. Like, hang on, let me see that. Let me see that P&L again before we go and donate all this money to or whatever, or 10% of all revenue is going to go to this. Of like, let me help you stay in business because I believe in you. I believe in your product and I believe in what you're trying to do. But I want to see you scale and build a sustainable business. So you can scale your impact. So not only helping them strategize, but also helping them figure out how to incorporate this into your brands or into their brand so that they can tell better stories and they can recruit better employees and they can start to win in the grand scheme of things. And then, and getting them comfortable with bragging about themselves a little bit too, because I think that's something that impact driven entrepreneurs are also, we're even today, one of my friends texts me because I can't stand LinkedIn, too much humble bragging. And I'm like, but if you don't tell your story, you're going to get out marketed. And so good people out there doing good work have to kind of humble brag. And there's an art to it. And I love working with entrepreneurs on that piece too. Of like, there's an art to not just being like, like I can post something about whatever the trash cleanup we did Saturday. And the post is nothing about me. It's on my LinkedIn page, but the post is about Chad, who helped organize it, who was the first guy in the woods pulling out tires. And it's about Christian, who we used to work together and he brought his truck and it was great to see him again. And it's about Jake, who's never not there, who's always at the cleanups. And so like, it was my way of publicly thanking them. And like, but some of that light shines back on me. But it wasn't just like, yo, look how good I am, cleaned up a bunch of trash on Saturday. Like, it was done in a way that I wanted to also make sure that I let people know who else was there. But also, yeah, like I do. There's a value in people knowing that like that's how Nathan spends his Saturdays,
Yeah.
because there's a legitimacy in this space, especially in the mission driven entrepreneur space. There is a lot of greenwashing and woke washing and pretty much just BS. So I know that I'm competing against, little PPCs competing against much bigger consulting firms with much bigger marketing budgets. And so to me, it's like I have to do what I can to be able to storytell around that. So to me, that's the fun part of working with these entrepreneurs. And then on the bigger scale, I think, the 150, 300, 500 employee company, they often don't have it all figured out from a impacts standpoint. They've grown because a lot of times what they're trying to do now is like turn the ocean liner. Not that they were a bad company to start with, just to like, it's like, oh, we volunteer all the time. They have the page on the website. Everybody's got the shovel and the company shirt on, and we're volunteering. The shovel looks like it's never been in the dirt before. And then I'm like, so how many hours did y'all volunteer last year? And they're like, oh, I don't think we track that. Well, how many people volunteered? You don't track that either. Okay, so everybody gets 40 hours of volunteer time off. That's a benefit? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we're really proud of it. We rolled it out. Everybody really likes it. Okay, how much of that time got used last year? Oh, I don't know. Okay. So like let's take a step back here. Really well intentioned, but now like how do I story tell if I have zero numbers? I just have that terrible picture of everybody with a shovel. That's it. That's all. That's my impact storytelling. So now that company helping them also now figure out like how do we do a better job, because we didn't put the foundation down to start like I'm doing with these earlier stage entrepreneurs. So that to me is also a lot of fun of like let's get better. And then some people you meet and they're just really buttoned down. I love it. And I actually picked up a tip the other day from a client. He was telling me the easiest way to say no, this is to charitable contributions and stuff. He goes, my employees pick a charity. Each office picks their own charity of choice for the year. That's our program. So when somebody comes and says, hey, we got this gala, hey, so my team picks the things, and but they have their metric, they have their amount and how much they're going to do, and employee mat, all that stuff. But I'm like, what a brilliant strategy though, also though, to not get roped into
Yeah. They my team
how
picked
much
my team
extra.
picked and they didn't pick you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sorry,
Sorry.
but I mean, not a brilliant, but yeah, I mean, a lot of companies, I think it's just I don't know. It's really rewarding to get to meet all these entrepreneurs, and whether they're nailing it or not. Like I tell these stories jokingly, but like also that's why people hire a consultant. Is because they, like run a really good accounting firm or they run a really good engineering firm, but like they might, this is what I nerd out on.
Right.
Oh, what's your employer brand? Oh, what are your, you know, what, oh my God, let me get those survey results. For the love of God, let me nerd out on that. I'll put together a nice shiny deck, tell you all the things that you're missing and blah, blah, blah. And where you think you're doing great and your team's telling you you aren't. And like, but that's what I
Yeah.
do.
You'd be like,
And that's what I really, really enjoy
give me
doing.
that clean shovel. I'll go dirty it up for you. I got a hole to dig.
Chad and I get out in the woods, get the tires out for
That's
you. Yeah.
right. That's right. That's right. And by the way, as you're doing all that, all your humble bragging, what you're really doing is just rest shaming me for sitting on my ass on Saturday.
Oh yeah. No, it was we try to do one a quarter, but it is, again, it becomes hard in the social impact world because you feel like you need to always be doing it. Um, but I don't know. I did get really passionate about it. It's like, okay, well, if I wanted to get some exercise today anyway,
Yeah.
I might as well walk up and down the street with a trash grabber and a trash bag in my hand. The downside of doing it with Chad is he's one of those, you walk by things. I literally said, I'll call this into the county. And he's just like already in the woods pulling it all out. I'm like,
Man, come on, man.
they got a guy for this, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it service maybe? I feel like,
It's a
all right, let's
Volkswagen,
do it.
dude. It's
Yeah, let's
it's
just,
a half a car.
yeah, let's just, all right, we're okay, let's get in.
Let's
Okay.
do it.
So, but yeah, it always feels good when you're done with it. So I try to tell people too, when I get people out to volunteer with me, like it becomes addicting, or addictive to just get out there and like that rush of like feel good that you get at the end of a good, you know, hour and a half and you got 34 bags of trash lined up on the side of the road kind of feels pretty rewarding of like, not in a like we saved the world today, but like, I don't know. At least I went. I always joke about that. Like I'm gonna go down swinging. At
You
least
made it a little
I'm
better. You made it a little
I'm
better.
gonna try. And that, and like, let's be honest. I mean, you've heard me now for what 34 minutes and 48 seconds. I complain a lot about the state of the world, and I complain a lot about whatever, about how what other people's what strategies they're employing or whatever. So if I'm gonna complain as much as I do, I better be out there doing a lot of good too, because otherwise then you're just a complaint, you're just a keyboard warrior.
That's right.
So like it was like the old what was it? It wasn't, I'm trying to remember, Lupe Fiasco, and there's a line in one of his songs where he just says, it's the words I wish I'd said, I think is the name of the song, but he says, complain about the gloom, but wouldn't you pick a broom up? And I'm like, so that's kind of the life motto for me. I'm like, if I'm gonna complain, I better be out here doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean that's kind of the first thing for I mean anything that you want to bitch about is that you got to be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. So um that when you were talking about the companies and them having programs, I remember there was a thing where Zappos used to do this deal where they would have people come in and bring their own, whatever program that they wanted Zappos to donate to, they could come in and make a case for it. And they had a person in charge of this program, and I talked to him about it, and I was like, "What's the process for doing that? I mean, you got 1,200 people that work at this company." And he's like, yeah, but only maybe 10% of the people that ever bring anything will actually go through the whole process to get the money because we make you earn it. Like it's not a thing where you're like, oh, I want you to give $1,000 to the shelter over here. Like you have to go through an application process and talk about why it's important and all these other things. And he goes, it's just a lot of people just give up on it. They don't even want to work hard enough to finish the application process to get money to help their cause.
Wow, that's nuts. Speaking of like, I mean, again, it's I say that sometimes too with like, and I hate this because one of the things I'll work with employers to do is get more people to do volunteer time off. But like even that is a perk. Like it'll rank really high in favorite employee perks. Nobody uses it. Like even the company I was at before I went out on my own, it was a consulting company, and I'm like, that gets your bonus is billable hours, and then there's a denominator of total hours worked. And if you use all 40 of that volunteer time, it's going to reduce your denominator by another 40. Like, even if you're doing it on like Sunday afternoon, I would be burning that entire 40 doing something good in the community. So, but honestly, we got very creative at that job. And like, a really awesome boss who like we actually wanted people to be taking it.
Hmm.
Like we didn't just put a perk to have a perk. So we started doing like you could volunteer for your kids field trip. Like it was like, how do we make this easier for you to do? Coach your kids' little league team. Like, it doesn't have to be between 9 and 5, Monday through Friday. Like, how else can we allow you to take advantage of this and be flexible around work hours for the week? So it was kind of, but it's like a, yeah, it's interesting that like, what a cool perk that 10% of the company actually applied, and then probably 1% actually completed the full application. That's interesting to hear that.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. Um, so well, and I was thinking about in that type of a situation, if you're going to have that perk, you almost have to your point, sort of leading from the front, you almost have to say, all right, we have planned a trash cleanup on Friday at 2 o'clock. Y'all are welcome to join. If you got work, you're welcome to stay, whatever it is. And so you kind of have to facilitate that, I think, instead of just saying like, here's this benefit and it's up to you to do it. I don't think that many people are going to do that because they get stuck in day-to-day life.
Yep. No, and it's funny you say that because I've been on the board of Keep Athens Beautiful for 5 years now, and so I started adopting highways in Athens. But then my old company's out of Forsyth County, which is like Alpharetta, north of Atlanta, and Keep Forsyth County Beautiful. I was like, hey, may or may not have adopted a highway for us. So they still to this day. I almost went last year. I was going to go and it rained and they got rained out, but I had to be up there for some meetings. I was like, I'm going to come pick up trash with my old coworkers. So, but they're still doing it once a quarter, still out there cleaning the old Advic Highway. So anyway, it was always it's a fun, but you're right. It's like make it easier. And those are a lot of things with like corporate giving, corporate, I mean, even things like Super Bowl squares and March Madness brackets, people are going to do them anyway. Just how much we give into charity. Like, let's do it and let's make it a charity thing. And everybody has fun. Everybody gets to, talk a little trash together. And then at the end of it, it's basically an employee led, charity drive for two really amazing charities. And then from a marketing perspective, that's a blog post and it's a social post. And yeah, it starts to kind
Yeah.
of, how do we do good and you know, do it in a way that reminds people what we do and maybe brings in some business and allows us to do even more good with the increased budget next year.
There's a my wife is in this group thing. It's sort of like a pool, but it's a walking pool. So everybody pays $10 to be in this thing where you have to do a minimum number of steps a week. So they're like going and doing this walking and it tracks it in this thing. And if you don't do the steps, then you get kicked out of the pool. Your money stays in. And so it's all just sort of a, you know, last person standing wins the money. Would be really cool is to do that as a donation. So then it's sort of like who's still in the hunt for it because it gives you this really long-term way to promote it. And then it's like the people at the end get to present the check and kind of do the whole thing, or maybe go out to dinner, with the people that they're presenting it to, or pick who it goes to. That would be a really cool promotion, wouldn't it?
I may have already stolen that idea from you.
Done. Take it.
You were halfway through it, and I'm like, gone, stolen.
Stolen.
Um, I mean, it is a really good idea. I love like a good like steps competition, stuff like that. Just again, especially with remote teams, it's just really hard to like, how do you engage a team where like your CEO should never be in your kitchen getting coffee in the morning. If they are, there's something else wrong.
And I think this is
But
like 1,000 people that they're doing it with. It's this app it's all travel travel advisors, so all over the United States. So it's crowdsourced that way.
that's cool. Yeah, because again, that's the other $1 million question right now is that remote engagement. And I know people are like forcing people back in the office, whatever. But I think a lot of companies, at least a lot of the ones I work with, they were remote before the pandemic. And they're staying remote now, but you still have to be able to create some sense of community, team, whatever with your team, whether you're remote or not. So that's a really good idea. I think that would be a fun one
Yeah,
to be
and I
able to.
like the health aspect, and getting out in the middle of the day and walking. I think is good for everyone. So as much as you can, that's kind of be a cool thing to do. Might have to steal it for myself.
Chat. That's what you know what it's funny though. Like I've been leading the B culture call for years. I started back in 2018. Anyway, it's a bunch of just B Corp people, kind of like maybe they're in charge of like the B Corp metrics, like the volunteer and the culture and maybe they're more traditional HR. But for me, it was an opportunity for us to learn from each other because I didn't know anything about HR when I started kind of wearing the culture hat. And the HR people I realize are much really good at like tracking data and metrics and offer letters, but they're not necessarily culture people. So it became this really cool thing. But we joke all the time of we'll start each call with an ideas you stole from the last call. So like there are no new ideas. Like we're just so like what are we stealing? And what problem set do we have? Okay, great. Has anybody tried to solve this? What worked? Okay, who has epic fails? Some of those of like, oh, we try to be careful, don't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of that crowdsourcing of good ideas of like again, no need to reinvent the wheel here, folks.
Somebody years ago just told me you yell out case when you want to steal something from somebody, copy and steal everything. You just say case. And that lets you know it's been stolen.
Oh, I've done it with like handbooks too. I remember asking somebody once, "Hey, can we use that? Your handbook's really thorough." They just told me like, "There's nothing proprietary in the handbook. What are you going to steal? How many days? Like any, like most of the benefit style stuff is in on our website anyway because we're trying to recruit people. But yeah, no, just change the company name and you're good. So we've been using it ever
Find and
since.
replace.
Yeah, I mean seriously, some people are so paranoid of like, oh, that's proprietary. Your handbook? What could possibly be in there?
That's actually a cool thing for you to promote, right? Is to put like download the best handbook I've ever seen and just find and replace. Like use that as a uh, get some emails.
Control F,
Control
replace. There you
Control F
go.
handbook, baby.
Yep, there you go. Just replace company name. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff out there like that of like let's even with my students, I'm like, if I catch any of you writing a handbook instead of actually consulting this company on how to like implement the processes, implement the policies, use them to boost employee engagement and retention, then I will hit you over there with the handbook. We get in trouble. We get in
I
trouble
know,
now.
not too much
Uh,
trouble, not too much trouble. Well, hey, I don't want to run too much up on time, but there's a couple of things I want to ask you about. One is you and I both served as advisors for Launchpad. Tell me about your experience with that.
so I'll be honest, that was the first time I had done like a cohort advisement, and I have been looking for. I've been chasing that rush again now for a year because I think that was the fall of 22. I had so much fun. And some of the people that I worked with, I'm still really, really, really like Valencia Bell. I still I talked to Valencia for an hour and a half a week ago. Like she just called me on Saturday, and I was driving to Augusta for some B Corp thing, and we just keep talking. Like so, I loved it. I loved, and again, it was a lot of those stories I was telling about, like early stage entrepreneurs, and some of their mission of like just helping them figure out like they had other people for like product market fit and stuff. But like for me, it was like I love that you're baking this social impact component in to whatever it is you're doing or this give back component. Like, but I want to help you make sure you can do it sustainably because that was the fun part to me was being able to work with just very, very passionate entrepreneurs, trying to change the world, but like giving them the good advice and giving them the thing they probably needed to hear. But maybe it felt weird to say like, well, maybe I can't do this, or we're gonna do this. Okay, let's start with 1% versus 10%, or let's start with a monthly donation of an amount to be determined
Yeah.
before we commit publicly. Because you get burned that way too. You start committing things publicly, and it's like 1% of revenue is a lot easier to say than 1% of our targeted revenue at 25 million. And now I've made that very public what the amount is versus if I just say 1% of revenue at the end of the year, it's a lot easier for me to go like, and I'm tracking that throughout the year. But if instead of 25, we come in at 18 million, well, I committed to 250,000. So oops.
Yeah.
So a lot of those things helping them kind of think strategically about what their mission is going to be and how they're going to story tell. But man, it was a lot of fun. I was very excited. Um, and yeah, it was a true. It was a lot of fun to be involved with, and again, made some Made a lot of friends in Alabama, and still like we'll be back at. I mean, we're doing a B Corp event on March 27th at the EDPA
Okay.
Birmingham.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do. Hopefully, we don't get snowed out again like we did in January. So
It has happened that time of year here, so it can happen.
yeah, but getting to know like Miller and a lot of those people over at EDPA has just been. Yeah, I mean, Techstars, Alabama. I was over there, guessing. I've just grown to love it, and honestly, I don't. There hasn't been a lot of. It's not used to it like Techstars. I've been to the Birmingham cohort a couple years ago, and again, back to the saying yes thing, where they're like, "You want to come talk?" Like there was, I think I got a T-shirt. Um, but I did a webinar like 2 weeks ago with Hazel Horvath from Ecolytics, who she invited me into this big webinar she was doing. She's like, "Can you come talk about B Corps?" So like, but I'm like, I met her through going to the Techstars thing. So I think there's just some of the cool like overlap as you build these relationships and watch. And the other rewarding part, and I'm sure you know this too, is like watching them start to take off, like watching them get funding or get a Series A done. Like you're just kind of like a proud whatever. You're not even like a proud papa because you were only there like giving them advice for like an hour a week for whatever it was, like
Yeah.
3 months. But still, like there's that element where you just like, I hope they know how hard people like you and I are cheering for them
Well,
to see.
I just saw one recently that was from the last cycle, and I was so excited to see her and talk to her, and I just talked to Estes the other day, and I'm like, it's so important to me to see these people do well because I know how hard it is to start a business, and there's so many mistakes that we make, and there's so many things that we do, and you want to help them and be that thing for them that you maybe didn't have when you were going through all that, or maybe even the thing that you did have that you were thankful for having. So it really is a awesome thing, and we're about to kick off the next cycle, so I'm pretty pumped about that coming up too. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, no, there's something about too of like that mutual respect and like, and I mean, I'm not in a venture really a venture back. I mean, I'm a consulting company. We're bootstrapped. There's no real venture backable consulting company, unless I figure out something cool with AI. But there's that like whatever the Teddy Roosevelt man in the arena or something. Like there's that mutual respect, entrepreneur to entrepreneur, of like knowing what you signed the amount of work you signed up for, knowing how you're trying to balance the getting sleep, getting rest, taking care of yourself, getting exercise, with knowing that there's always a mountain of work waiting for you, knowing what it's like to make payroll, knowing what it's like to face failure, to face the fact that you can't make payroll or you can't stay in business and you have to like all those things. Like there's just a respect for people who are willing to try to chase their dreams. And I always advise like entrepreneurs. I have a buddy that just kind of got laid off like 3 or 4 months ago, and he's kind of got his own business up and humming now a little bit, and he's doing kind of like some handyman repair work, kind of figuring it out though. I'm like, you don't need to know exactly what it's going to be yet. You just need to be able to pay yourself and keep your lights on, and we'll figure the rest out. But like I told him that the other day we were texting. I said, "Hey man, like the worst thing that can possibly happen to you is you make the decision that this isn't sustainable and you have to go get another job. That's it." And there's an ego blow, like, oh, I chose, like, and yeah, there's always going to be that hater. It's like, I knew what it might could do it. Um, but the rest of us look at you and like it's a full salute, man. Like you gave it your all. So like I don't know. It's the more it's kind of like we talked about earlier, like surrounding yourself with those with the yes people,
Yeah.
but also surrounding yourself with people who we have like an entrepreneurs like therapy dinner. It's two of my best friends in Atlanta that we weren't best friends until we started doing this, but once a quarter we get together and it's I had to do this or I had to fire a customer or like sharing those stories of like, but like being able to commiserate with somebody. I think that's the value of those cohorts. And I think I learned as much from Launchpad from the participants as hopefully they learned a lot from me. But I felt like I learned a lot from them as well, just kind of watching them and being able to again and now sit here and just kind of cheer them on.
Yeah, no, I for sure learned something from all of them, and then I'm sometimes in awe of some of the businesses that they've put together. And there's one you need to check out if you don't know who he is. You know Matt Pierce from Immediate?
Um,
He's got awesome business. And we can talk more about it offline, but it's very much right up your alley. he ended up putting together something, put something together really cool that didn't exist at the time. And he went through, Launchpad and did all that. And he's just got a great company. So you got to be excited for people to come up with a great idea that can blow up and become something really big.
Yeah. So especially, yeah, for me too, like the social impact ones too, like those are the ones where you're really cheering on, like baking that. And it's cool that honestly that people are like, this is the next wave of entrepreneurship. And I think in traditional businesses, the good ones, are realizing you adapt or die. Like you have to start thinking about things like B Corp, things like mission, vision, values, like real mission, vision, values, not like the ones that you put on the, paint on the wall of the office. That all these things really do matter. And like, even, you can regulate ESG or DEI, or we're not going to say that, but the toothpaste is out of the tube, the ship's left the port. And the good companies get it. The good companies get it, and the good companies will adapt, and they might fall flat on their face a couple of times trying this. But I still think that doesn't mean they're irredeemable. I think we kind of help companies that are willing to embrace this journey and willing to embrace what the 21st century is going to look like from a business perspective and what we value as a society. And I think we collectively try to get there together.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, cool.
Optimistic, unreasonable.
Got to be unreasonably optimistic about it. That's right. All right. So if people want to find you, where are they going to chase you down?
Just texting about this morning. LinkedIn. One of these days, I'm going to create my own personal Instagram. I do have one for my Christmas decorations. That's another conversation for another day. But yeah, LinkedIn for me personally. And then for PPC, I think we're both Instagram and LinkedIn. We're Profitable Purpose Consulting. It's a pretty unique name. Not a lot of copycats. We're not Profitable Purpose Consulting 7. And then same thing with Be Local Georgia. We're on both Instagram and LinkedIn, and hopefully soon too, also getting the Alabama B Corps community up rolling. So we'll be back March 25th in Huntsville, the 27th in Birmingham, and the 28th in Montgomery. I sound like a stand-up comedian. You can catch me at the EDPA on the 27th.
That's right. That's right. I'm going to be doing open mic, and yep.
So, but also and I know your listeners are everywhere, but if there is anybody in Birmingham, I think I'm there like most of all day the 26th and all day the 27th until that event. So like anybody wants to get together and talk, grab coffee, grab a beer, grab dinner. I'm down to meet you at the bar at Bottega and have a scrumptious meal.
Let you buy me dinner.
Yes. I'm a struggling entrepreneur. Can you buy me dinner? But anyway, yeah. So if anybody is interested, definitely reach out because I'm hoping to fill the calendar up for those 2 days. And, I know it's spring break too, so that's kind of a bummer, but we'll make the most of it.
Yeah, we'll be out of town for that one. So all right, man. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. This was a lot of fun.
Anytime. I love this. This is fun.
Awesome.